Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video I am going to be going over 5 different AFK moneymakers, of which are some of my favorites in the game. These are some pretty good AFK moneymakers, the best method being able to make around 20 mil per hour. I will have timestamps to each of the 5 methods in the description if you guys want to jump to whatever method you are interested in. Anyway, let's jump into the video. So starting off with our first method, we have making Blood Reaver pouches, which is a binding contract. So the requirements include 73 summoning, which is needed to make the Blood Reaver binding contract. You'll also need level 68 archaeology and the Dagon by mystery completed, which gives you the ability to create binding contracts. You will need access to Nex and be a fairly high combat level. Some notes about this method include the fact that you will be spending time making the binding contracts, which isn't really AFK, but when you do have a nice stack of binding contracts, killing the Blood Reavers is one of the most AFK things on this method. So it's a really great AFK moneymaker from that perspective. You'll be able to AFK until your inventory is full when you are at the Blood Reavers, so it can take a few minutes. Essentially, you'll just be using magic notepaper on the binding contracts when your inventory is full, and then AFK some more. So as I said, the first part about this method is making the binding contracts. So you can see I have a preset set up to make the binding contracts. You'll need your blue charms, your pouches, and your spirit shards, and then you'll need the blood of Orcus and Hellfire metal. I also bring a beast of burden and fill that up as well, just for some extra pouches per trip. So you will just be going back and forth from the bank to the summoning obelisk to make the binding contracts. This can be a bit tedious, and you know, as I mentioned, it isn't AFK, but once you do have a stack of binding contracts, you will be good to do the AFK part of the method. Alternatively, you can actually get binding contracts through Tetra compasses, so that is another option. If you are doing a fair bit of archaeology, you could go on the Tetra compass hunt, and you could stock up on some binding contracts that way as well. But first off is just get a nice stack. You can kill about 5, maybe 600 Blood Reavers per hour. So if you plan on doing it for an hour, you will want that many pouches. Once you have your stack of pouches, you can gear up. As you can see, I don't really have great gear on. I mean, I do have my Bow of the Last Guardian, but I'm using Anima Core of Zamorak, and you know, some fairly average gear, not my high-end PVM gear. It's just because the Blood Reavers, they're quite easy to kill. You can see that they're all sort of clustered over around this area. So what I do is I just run over here and I just AFK the Blood Reavers. I go on to my AFK ranged action bar, and they will automatically attack me as long as I don't have the Shard of Zaros in my inventory or equipped. So you'll want to make sure that they are aggressive just to make the method more AFK. If you can leave your inventory fairly open, that is preferable. It makes the method more AFK, because the only time you're going to have to click is just to note the Blood Reaver pouches, so you can then go ahead and make some more. This method you can make around 20 mil per hour. That is including the time of actually making the binding contracts. If you're just solely spending an hour killing the Blood Reavers, you could make around 40 mil for that 1 hour. So it's an exceptional method. It's really AFK. Really the only problem is making the binding contracts, but it is one of my favorites, and definitely one that you guys might want to take advantage of. Defeating Krill is sort of an old school type method, but it is now a really great AFK method and has been for a while. It has gotten a bit better since the announcement of Necromancy, just because the subjugation set is going to be used somehow in the skill, so the price of that has gone up. But for the requirements for this method, you'll need 70 Constitution and the Troll Stronghold just to get to Krill. 80 plus magic is recommended, and the Demon Horn Necklace and Attuned Ectoplasmider is what makes the method AFK. So that is required if you want the AFK method. Some notes: the Demon Slayer perk is quite useful. You can AFK for a few minutes at a time, but should watch your health a little bit. And of course, you do want to pick up the loot before it does despawn. Most of the money you're going to be making is going to come from those subjugation pieces. The subjugation body sells for around 12 mil, and the legs part, that sells for around 10 or 11 mil as well. So you can make some pretty good money per hour, but it is going to vary from hour to hour depending on your luck. So once you get your kill count, you will want to start an instance where Krill is spawning at the fastest spawn speed. I prefer standing right around here. I find that you're able to actually just attack Krill first around this area, so that is what I prefer. I'm just taking a look at my gear setup. You can see I am using magic, so I do have better ranged gear, but magic is the best combat style to use here, especially if you're a lower level. The Inquisitor's Staff is really helpful here. It does get the damage bonus against Krill. I do have some pretty average magic gear on just because you don't really need too much, and I like to save on some costs. So I do have full subjugation with my Virtus bottoms just because it has the scavenging perk. So if you do have that, you know, it's a pretty good spot to use it. You can see I have the Demon Horde Necklace and Attuned Ectoplasmider. So the Ectoplasmider, it instantly scatters the ashes, giving you prayer XP after each kill, and the Demon Horn Necklace restores your prayer points every time you gain some prayer XP. So they sort of work hand in hand and give you unlimited prayer throughout your time here. So in terms of the aura that you want to use, this is actually fairly important. If you do find you're struggling on health, you could use the Vampirism aura. An aura that I really like using here is the Poison Purge aura. So Krill does poison you, and it does deal a fair bit of damage over time. If you don't use the Poison Purge aura, then you will want to bring an anti-poison, and that sort of makes the method a little bit less AFK. You have to watch for the timer on that. So, you know, I like using the Poison Purge aura because it does heal you. It does avoid me having to use anti-poison potions, and also it just doesn't have that many uses either, so may as well use it here. But as you can see, you know, the method is quite simple. If you do have all of the required items, you can just stand here in AFK Krill and pick up any drops that are worthwhile. You can see I do have the Spring Cleaner. It does drop a few rune salvage, which can be alked. And I like bringing Magic Notepaper just so I can note the Super Strength and Super Attack potions when those are dropped. Next, we have a skilling AFK moneymaker, being crafting decorated urns. Requirements include 80 crafting and 82 magic, as well as lunar diplomacy. Now, you don't actually need the magic level in lunar diplomacy if you want this method to be even more AFK but less GP per hour. But the method I'm going to show you requires that, and you'll be able to make around 8 mil per hour. So notes include you can gain around 200,000 crafting XP per hour and 150,000 magic XP per hour. The downside about this method is you are only AFK for about 15 seconds at a time, so it isn't really that AFK. If you decide not to use the Fire Urn spell in the Lunar spellbook, and just actually fire the urns the old-fashioned way, the method is much more AFK. When you are firing the urns, it will be over a minute of AFK time, but then of course you're not making as many per hour, and your profit would drop significantly, probably to around 2 or 3 mil per hour. But that is up to you whether you want to take that trade-off or not. So this method is also fairly simple. You can see that I just have a preset with the soft clay. And I am impressionist doing this. It's the closest spot to a potter's wheel and a bank. So I could just use the potter's wheel. I can pick which decorated urn I want to make. So I would recommend going on the Grand Exchange and just testing out the profit margins first. I did find that the urns, they sold, or they insta-sold for a lot lower than what they were listed at. So if you do want to maximize your profit, you might have to try slow selling these urns to get, the listed Grand Exchange price. But even if you are insta-selling the urns and not going for that extra profit by slow selling them, you still will make around 8 mil per hour. So the first step to this method, as you can see, is just making the decorated urns. I'm making the decorated woodcutting urns because that's what I found had the highest profit margin. So the first step is just go back and forth from the bank and continue to make those. The second step to this method is actually firing the runes. As I mentioned, there's 2 different ways you can do this. One is the old-fashioned method, so you can do that right here in Prifddinas as well. You can see that it takes quite a long time, and that's only to do half an inventory of urns. So that isn't really the most efficient method, but it does make it more AFK if that is what you're after. Otherwise, if you're going for the most profit per hour, you will want to use the fire urn spell. So you can see I have the runes in my rune pouch and a fire battle staff. I can just click the fire urn spell, and you can see it's so much faster doing it this way, and this is even with a full inventory of urns. So if you are looking to make the most profit per hour, then just use the spell. You also get some pretty good magic XP per hour on top of that. But if you want the method a bit more AFK, you can just do it the old-fashioned way by firing them through the oven. This next method is one of my favorite AFK methods. It is really easy and super AFK. It's killing the Arc Glacior on normal mode with very few mechanics. There aren't any requirements, but you should have, decent combat stats. At least level 70 is recommended. It's best to use the Vampirism Aura here. The Penance Aura can be used, but I find Prayer may still drain. You can be quite AFK here, at least for a few minutes at a time. I find I am never worried about my health getting too low or getting killed. Really, the only reason why you need to click every once in a while is to make sure the drops don't despawn. So to start the method, again, just get some pretty average PVM gear. Now normally I do turn all of the mechanics off when I'm in normal mode, but you can do it with Flurry on. You will take maybe a little bit more damage, but the drops will be slightly better. So from now on, I will be using Flurry every time. You'll especially want to turn Flurry on if you are using the Penance Aura, and that's because you restore prayer points based on the damage you take. So you do actually want to take a little bit more damage, I find, just so you can keep your prayer points active a bit faster. I find Vampirism Aura is the more safer option, more AFK. You really don't have to worry about anything, but the Penance Aura does work fairly well also. So the method really is as easy as that. You just stand in the middle and AFK the Arc Glacior. He is going to drop the Wen Elder Troves every 6 minutes if you do have the overcharged Ponix Shadow Ring. But you'll also be getting some pretty decent loot from the Arc Glacior itself. It does add up. You might get some manuscripts of Wen, which cost about a few 100k each. So overall, you should expect around 6 mil per hour doing this boss. It could potentially even be a little bit more. The nice thing about it too, you're getting a little bit of combat XP, but also some Marks of War, which can be really nice. I use mine for the Sign of Life fairly often, especially when I die at a tough boss. I like to just have it active, so I'll just go and buy another one. So it is nice to stock up on those Marks of War, and you can make a little bit of AFK money on the side also. And so the last method on the list is the BIC Elder Trove farming. It is probably the lowest GB per hour, but it is the most AFK on the list. So requirements include level 88 in either fishing, hunter, mining, or woodcutting. You will really want the overcharged Pontifex Shadow Ring, just so you can get the Elder Troves every 6 minutes. And you can gain some really good XP per hour at the Crosis front. Notably 500,000 Hunter XP per hour if you are doing the Hunter method. The fishing is also fairly good at around 200k XP per hour. And then the mining and woodcutting are a fair bit lower, but still pretty decent. So to do the method, it is quite straightforward. Just head to the Crosis front. You can choose between mining, woodcutting, fishing, and hunter. So I'm just going to show you guys hunter just because that's my preferred method. You also get a ton of hunter XP per hour. So if you are training hunter, this is actually, I think, the best hunter training method in the game. So it's definitely a great method. And really, the way you're going to be making the money is just by getting the Elder Troves of BIC. So you can get one every 6 minutes if you have that overcharged Pontifex Shadow Ring, like I mentioned. And each Elder Trove is worth right around 300k each. So if you do get 10 in an hour, that's 3 mil just from the Elder Troves. And then you're going to be getting some resources from either skilling station that you choose, and you can sell that for a little bit of extra profit as well. So you can see I just opened the Elder Trove. This drop, was fairly decent, but not one of the better ones. Still a few 100k. The rewards you want to look out for are the manuscripts of BIC. You'll make around 3 mil if you do get that drop, which is uncommon. So, you will get some of them. The other pretty good drop is the Pernix Quiver Fragments, which sell for just over 1 mil each. So you can get some pretty good drops from these Elder Troves. And as I mentioned, you can get one every 6 minutes. So essentially you just have to click every 6 minutes to make 3 mil or 4 mil per hour. And so those are all 5 of the AFK money making methods that I have in today's guide. I really hope you found a few of them helpful and that you will use some of them in the future. If you guys have any questions about the methods, just let me know in the comments. Otherwise, make sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe for more RuneScape 3 content. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.